Hi, this is Carlos Reyes, and you're listening to the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with Jon and Pete.
Yes, that's right. With us here at the brand new Mountain View Studios. That's what I call my kitchen table when we can see the mountain out the window. The great Carlos Reyes. Man, thank you for stopping by.
Well, thanks for the invite, man.
You're stopping by. You got some shows around here that we want to tell all our listeners about. So right out of the gate, let's tell our listeners how they can get to see your carlosreyesmusic.com.
Yes.
And you put your show dates up there.
Yeah, and just as a quickie, September 1st, going to be headlining at Yoshi's in Oakland.
Yep.
September 3rd, going to be at Silos in Napa, 2 shows.
All right.
And that's a nice little intimate place. That's great.
It is.
And then on the 27th, I'm going to be up at Fairfield, Downtown Theater, playing with my good buddy, Mr. Roy Rogers, Delta Blues Man.
Roy Rogers. You have a gig with Roy Rogers coming up, too, this weekend, right? I mean, you're going straight to Tahoe from here in my house.
We're opening up for Steve Miller, and then I'm playing with Steve Miller also, so it's going to be a great night.
Wow.
That's up at Harris Tahoe in Tahoe.
Nice.
Sweet.
Outdoors.
Oh, and it's an outdoor venue.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I think if I could see a concert outdoors versus indoors any day of the week, man, I prefer outdoors.
That place is great, too. It's all the seats are great. The sound systems are great, and Steve always takes his own front of house gear. It's just high tech, and he does a great job. And so Roy and I and Steve are good buddies, and so we get to all play together. It's going to be fun.
Have you played with Steve Miller many, many times over the years?
Oh yeah, it's been going on about 15 years now.
Wow.
Off and on, a couple of shows here and there and everything, and you know we've done some recording. He's got a project he's working on that's doing all his hits acoustic.
No kidding.
And so, yeah, he's been working on it for a while, but we've done that, and so
chipping away at it.
Yeah, he's got so much material to work on. I mean, he could easily put out another 20 albums of just different cuts and different ideas and concepts, and he's the older rock and roll version of Prince. You know, he's just got tons of recordings in the vaults, and
that's so good to hear.
Oh, yeah.
Because we want all of that stuff out and outliving all the great artists. If you leave a vault behind, then your music can leak out over the next 100 years after you pass. And Steve Miller, man, he's been one of my favorites since I discovered Steve Miller when I was 6 years old. And I've loved him ever since then.
His music has a low bar for entry. Like you can be young and get it.
Yeah, and
but
get it. Exactly.
It sticks on you though, you know?
Oh, it's so good.
The hook, man.
Yeah.
It's about the hook.
Yeah. I don't think people, this is a silly statement, but I don't think people really give him the credit for the guitar player that he is.
He's an unsung hero when it comes to guitar playing because he is one of the great, what I call slow hand blues guys. You know, kind of like the Eric Claptons. And
he'll milk a note.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And it's sometimes he plays stuff. I said, Steve, that was great. He said, what? What did I do?
They forgot.
You know,
he just passed right by it.
You know, and he's just he's got a lot of soul. He's got that white guy rock and roll soul, boy.
Well, I also saw one day I happened upon the 75th birthday of Les Paul that had and everybody was there. Yeah. Eddie Van Halen and Jimmy Page was there, Eric Clapton, all the greats, Mark Knopfler. They're all there, and they all came up and took a turn and stayed for a couple songs. And then Steve Miller came up, and I was like, I didn't realize Steve Miller was going to get in here with these guys. And, man, he hung in there. And then he stayed.
And you know the relationship between?
Well, I did find out later because I sat there watching. I was like, man, I didn't realize Steve Miller was this kind of a monster. Holy moly, he's in there. He's not only hanging with him, he's cutting heads. Mm-hmm. And then I found out Les Paul was his godfather.
Right. He put him on his knee, put his first guitar in his hand.
Uh-huh.
The whole thing. Actually, Steve's father is probably one of the guys, if not the guy that turned Les Paul into the whole recording thing.
Really?
Yeah, because Steve's dad had one of the very first portable Niagara recorders.
Wow.
Which was a big deal and a lot of money in those days.
Yeah.
And Steve's dad put all his pennies into doing that, and he went to the local place where musicians would come and play and hang and says, "Hey, do you mind if I record you?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Sure." And that's how he met Les Paul and started recording them.
No
Back
shit.
in the day. Oh, yeah. He taught Steve his first chords and everything. And
Well, so to be the guy who met Les Paul because you recorded him, some people don't realize Les Paul invented the multi-track recorder.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have guys like Prince, Marvin Gaye, people who used multi-track recording to the end that we have become accustomed now.
I got a chance
That's
to
'cause of Les
hang several times with Les Paul and talk to him about technical stuff because I helped pioneer this violin that was a MIDI violin by a company called Zeta way back in the day.
Wow.
And so Les Paul was he loved technology, of course, and all that. And so we got to talk, and he was just a funny dude.
Yeah.
And then when he got really technical, it was great. As a matter of fact, this quick little story, we were down at the NAMM show, and he came up and he said, "Carlos, how you doing? How's that thing working?" I said, "Well, we're soldering still." He said, "Yeah, that's the way it goes." And so I said, "Mr. Paul, I got to ask you this question. I got this picture. Would you mind signing it?" And he said, "Sure." He signed it. And I said, "Now, I see these Ampex machines. He had about 8 of them, and they're all 2-track, big, gigantic machines."
Yeah.
And so, he was in his studio working out stuff. And I said, "But what are those big mason jars on top? Man, there's wires and stuff." Well, back in those days, we didn't have strong enough tubes, so I made my own tubes out of those
mason jars.
These big things. And he said something about how he made it so he pulled the oxygen out and all this and these tubes. And I'm going, wow.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about multi-track, the way he said it was, it was kind of an accident.
Was it?
Yeah, because he was trying to do delay and all that stuff, and he set it up in a certain way, and he overdubbed, and it was just unreal. It's just the way he explained it was, what?
Yeah.
Stumbled upon multi-track recording on accident.
Just the Edison, the same concept, A lot of his inventions were accidents looking for something else.
Right.
If you look at the old Echoplex, they were recording heads with a big piece of tape and that kind of stuff. So,
wow.
I may be saying it a little bit out of context, but it's incredible. Les Paul people don't realize how much he contributed to what we have today in the multi-track world.
And the electric guitar. I mean, he was the Thomas Edison of music.
Yeah.
Well, he took what Rickenbacker.
Yeah.
Rickenbacker was technically like the first electric guitar, but he came out with the concept of different kind of pickups and how the magnetic poles would work and all that, and people said, "Well, nobody's going to buy this. It looks like a 2x4 with that." So he put these 2 big hunks of wood on the sides that look like a
just
guitar
so it could
body.
shape it like a guitar body.
Yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to buy that.
Yeah.
Man, you know what? I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you don't look that old.
Well, thanks. I've been a child since I was born, and I'm still there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. But if we go back through your musical history, let's start at the beginning. Were you born in Paraguay?
I was born in Paraguay, and I came to this country when I was real young. Went straight to first grade. No English, no nothing.
All right.
And TV was my teacher.
Sure.
TV helped you out.
And my father was a big time musician. Both my father and mother were musicians, but my father was.
You got it from both sides.
Oh yeah.
Usually there's one sane one. You got it from both sides.
Yeah, my mom kind of kept it on the back end after my father came into the play, but
okay.
She was an opera singer and the whole bit. My father, he toured all over the world before I was even born, and he met this musician in Brazil. He had a big time group. My father turned it over to his nephew, who turned it into the biggest selling Latin artists at the time through Europe and everything. But the guy he came to the United States was Xavier Cugat.
No shit.
Yeah,
No shit.
The very first time.
Wow.
And so in those days, they gave him a green card, and that was your work visa, you know.
Yeah.
And he kept it up all the years that he traveled. After that, he'd go to U.S. embassies wherever he was, and he would sign himself
Just keep it up.
And then he went, retired, married my mom in Colombia, and they went back to Paraguay, and things started getting really funky with the political situation, and they wanted him to sign up on one or the other party. And he said, "Hey, you know, I'm a musician." He had a radio show that was real successful in a big nightclub, and all of a sudden things started going downhill.
He started getting some pressure.
Yeah, and the guys with the sunglasses started showing up, and his uncle said, "Son, I can feel it. If you want a future for your kids, you need to go." And that was like a Tuesday, and Thursday he said, "I got a contract in Argentina," which he would go back and forth, and he never came back, came to the United States and started all over again.
Wow.
Oh, by the way, the guy who took his place kind of hanging out with Xavier Cugat, a young guy who sang and played guitar and everything, was Desi Arnaz.
What?
Yeah, I finally put it together years ago with a guy who used to work for Xavier Cugat and Abby Lane, who was the actress, and that was his first wife. That's actually one of the ways Xavier Cugat got into the movies.
Was from Abbey Lane.
Yeah, and the other thing was the reason him and a guy named Perez Prado were the two big Latin guys. And there people said, well, how did it become so popular? Believe it or not, it was because at that time there was a big fight with the unions and royalties, and they didn't want to pay artists and all that. So they brought the Latin music in on the radios, and they didn't play the Latin musicians.
Wow.
And so a lot of the Latin music of the early days, nobody got anything. It's no different than, black artists of the old.
Right.
With 5-6 different writers you didn't know who was.
and things get popularized because you can exploit them.
But thank goodness for that, because it kind of probably gave way to the Joe Beams and the, and all the
Charo.
Sergio Mezes, Sergio Mendez and all those people.
Speaking of Xavier Cugat.
Charo, she was way down the line.
Way down the line. But still, those, and really, if you look at it right now, we have, of course, history. We have hindsight as a benefit, but you have guys like Chance the Rapper,
right,
who now are just saying, exploit it, put it out, and he gives away all of his music, and then says, I'll follow up with the live show, and that's where I'll make my money. And that's kind of become the new model.
The industry is switching back to the old days. I'm sure if you've talked to Jeff here, in the old days, and the Big Bopper and all those people, they would put out a song, but then they'd put 3 or 4 acts together, and they'd all travel together to promote it. And that's the way, artists got some money, And now it's coming back. It's coming back to do the same thing. Is you have to tour. People are selling CDs, believe it or not, at at big concerts and the swag and all the merchandise. Like now contracts are made or broken over merchandise.
Wow.
And one of the first big ones to really, really do that was Garth Brooks. Man, he was selling as much merchandise, believe it or not, on the. I got friends in low places that tour.
Yeah.
They say he was making as much money in merchandise as he was on the contract per night.
But you're going to buy a shirt when you go to a show, automatically. And then you got to get one for your kid. Next thing you know, you spend $150 on shirts,
And he spent on the design. He didn't put out bullshit shirts. He was like, people are going to get there and they're going to want to reach into their wallets.
Yeah.
People don't realize that Garth Brooks' college degree is in marketing.
Right.
So, he knew what he was doing from the very beginning and helped shape what we, now kind of not take for granted, but it have to do as a survival tactic, right?
Well, him, Madonna, Michael Jackson, all those people had a lot of brains. I mean, I got to give it to Garth. He had the musicality, just like Michael Jackson. Mm-hmm. Madonna had a different sense of musicality, but she made it work.
Yeah.
But
she knew how to surround herself with musicality. Mm-hmm. If you're Madonna, you have your thing, you go, well, I better get some serious folks around me. I better call Nile Rodgers.
Yeah.
So I just like to ping Nile Rodgers because we're trying to get him. But he's,
Come on, Niall. Say yes.
Come on, Nile. Anyway, so now you do a lot of road miles, huh?
Actually, I do at certain times of the year. You know, I've been real blessed that, you know, I do play different genres and I play different instruments. And so
Right.
I'll do this. I'll do a shot. Like I'm on the latest Arturo Sandoval record, which is,
Wow.
you know, jazz and / Latin and all that. I'm playing violin, doing some solos, playing with him next weekend. And then Steve, which is, you know,
From Arturo
All-American.
Sandoval to Steve Miller.
Yeah.
the all-American rock and roll.
Yeah.
And tell our
Roy.
listeners, what do you play?
Pardon me?
What instruments do you play?
The whole string family. Main things I do on stage is violin, harp from Paraguay, but it's all electric and new. And I also play bass, a lot of bass.
Nice.
Are you playing a
I'm
lot of bass?
functionist. Yeah,
Good.
it's not as much as I used to, but I
Yeah.
do. You know, and the recording stuff, I do a lot of sessions doing that stuff. I'm a funkster at heart.
Yeah.
And
Aren't we
I play
all?
The guitar and the Spanish guitar thing. So my whole training was classical.
Right.
Started with that.
So you're not afraid of a viola either. You'll
No,
grab anything.
I got them all.
I got 'em
I
all.
even have a violin that sounds like a cello, so I can transport it easier.
Yeah. Isn't that great? I mean, instead of having to carry that big ass expensive thing around. Yeah.
Yeah, the harp is big enough.
Yeah. How do you
But,
transport it? You just ship it ahead?
I used to, and now I used to send it on FedEx ahead of time. But now I've got one on the East Coast if I do stuff there. But the harp, now that I've designed, the last two are real small. I can take them with
Portable.
me. And they're just right under 50 pounds with
Oh,
the case.
yes.
So I have to still play the oversized, but it's been okay.
Yeah.
And they do hook up pedals and stuff to it?
I've done all kinds of stuff.
All
to
kinds
it.
of things.
Yeah.
Hey, I just want to get our listeners to, if you haven't already, our guest this week is Carlos Reyes, and if you have not seen him already, you can see a lot of clips on YouTube of him fucking burning on the
destroying.
violin, the Paraguayan harp, and just about any stringed instrument. But there's a lot of violin clips of you on YouTube.
Yeah, there's a lot of
and
violin
people should check
and harp
those out.
stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but it's been fun because, like with Steve, with Roy, I actually play the harp in the show too.
Right on.
And those kind of things. And
I do got to tell you, you are not the first harp player to be on this show, just so you know.
I'm okay with that.
We had Tara Kemp on.
Especially if the first one was Tara Kemp.
Yeah. She's first.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny because you don't think of someone being in the rock and roll world and breaking out a harp, but there you are doing it. Do you know what you want to bring in? Like, if someone says, "Hey, I want you to come down," do they say, "Bring your violin," or how does that work?
In what context? Huh?
You know, someone wants to give you a
Session
good
or
live
live?
performance. Yeah.
Usually they're going to tell me, I got this tune, I want you to play this, or we're working on something. A lot of times, with Steve, we do this tune called Nature Boy, which is, an old jazz tune. And he said, remember this tune? And he started humming. I said, of course. And I happened to have the harp there. We started playing, then we worked on it.
Yeah.
And just
Nice.
worked on it. We're like, okay, we're doing it tonight.
Wow.
And then we played it a couple of times with the band. And then at the very end, he said, I just want to do it like we did when we were hanging out. And that's on YouTube a lot. There's a bunch of different versions. It's just him and I. With Roy, the tunes we've done, a couple of them have been in the studio. And he said, this is the key it's in, because the harp I have to tune in a certain way to make it work. And it just kind of created the part. And then, like the latest album, he said, this is the vibe I'm looking for, blah, blah, blah. And so I worked out something right then and there, see how it feels. And the solos are just the solos.
Yeah.
So
But it's a different kind of harp. It's all electric. There's a pickup on each string, and it's funky.
man, how do you get something that with a pickup on each string?
Yeah.
It's all
Something that
custom,
complicated.
All my concept and everything, and I have
Under
man.
50 pounds. You take that thing on the road.
Yeah. All those pickups, I think, would weigh like 100 pounds by
Yeah.
itself.
no, they're real small, and I've been working with a guy since I was probably 20 years old.
So for about 7 years.
19 years old, yeah. And just through the years, been getting better and better, and it's been getting better. And he's a harp maker himself. His name is David Courtier, and he's in Duluth, Minnesota.
Wow.
So a lot of FedEx shipping back and forth.
That might be the first shout out to Duluth we've had on our show.
Hey, Duluth, welcome to the party.
Oh, he's great. He's a visionary, too. And he started out making woodwind instruments and old Renaissance instruments.
Wow.
And he was a bassoon player himself in the symphony, and he liked working with wood, so he made some old oboes and things like that. And somebody said, "Can you make me a harp?" Sure. Then he started making what they call historical harps, which is harps from the Renaissance area,
Right.
1500s. And then he got turned on to, "Can you put a pickup on it?" And now that's basically what he does is, pickups for harps. And him and I worked on this concept for a long time, and here we are.
And he's the vintage and experimental luthier of our generation.
Yeah, he looks like, kind of like a Father Time kind of guy.
Yeah.
Too,
He has to.
So,
Yeah.
and he's,
Right.
so
He doesn't
it's
wear a suit to work, that's for sure.
No.
And it's a combination of wood and wires,
Uh-huh.
I like it.
That is cool. And he's got, the thing with bassoon players is that they have a special sensibility around the wood on an instrument because they're playing a double-reeded instrument, You got to love and caress the wood if you're a bassoonist or an oboist.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, the wacky world of the bassoonist and the oboist, any of those is the reeds,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
They're always whittling reeds. And
They're in the
getting them
reeds.
wet.
Uh-huh.
And you could always tell. I remember in the symphony, working on something, and they have this little piece of metal that they put on their lap in between playing, and all of a sudden, because it's a piece of cane, you fold it over and you shape it, and then you cut the edge to open it. And that is like
The
a
moment.
diamond, cutting
Yes.
a diamond, and that's the
Right.
magic. And you could hear this, and all of a sudden it would be,
Tink.
and then you would go, you could either hear nothing or you go,
Shit.
and you could just tell that all that work was for nothing.
Yes.
And I remember that. I just remember that since I played in the Oakland Symphony at the age of 14, so I've been around the whole symphony thing, and I just remember that. My father used to tell me, he says, "Beware of oboe players and bassoon players. They're crazy, man. They're something
crazy.
different about them."
For them to be, because you have to be an instrumentalist and a craftsman at the same time,
Exactly.
And that whole situation with creating your reed and, like you said, folding it over and moistening it with your saliva, folding it over and then making that cut and hitting it just right. It's almost like the guy who could roll a cigarette with one hand while he's riding a horse. It's like some guys can do that, man, and some guys just aren't built for that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and that's an art. I've seen cowboys do that, man.
Yeah.
They've been with one hand. They write it, put the pouch in there,
Right.
take the paper,
Yeah.
and they ink up the bag and do it a certain way,
And they do that finger snap.
Yeah, and they just do
Just
like
the end of
that,
the roll.
And-
I wish you guys could have seen that. That was a nice shot right there. That was good. The Oakland Symphony. You played in the Oakland Symphony and the Oakland Youth Symphony at the same time, huh?
I was in the youth symphony at 14, and I was guest soloist with the Oakland Symphony.
Wow.
Look at you.
That's like the September call up in Major League Baseball. Where you got you're 19 years old, you got 1 foot in AA, and then they go, "Hey kid, you know what? We need a guy who can pound one the opposite field off a left-hander." And they bring you up and you come in and do your thing, and everybody knows you're setting the table. Because you're going to be something serious.
Yeah.
So
It was the classical word. My father was a classical guitarist, and aside from the folk music, and so that's how we got started. My brother's a classical guitarist and a conductor, and so our whole family, that's what it was about.
Right.
But I found out at an early age, and as I love the classical world, but
however, where the chicks are,
aside from
that's
that,
how this story goes.
aside from that, at that time, it was just, I know a lot of people disagree, but you got to have a certain mentality and just tunnel vision, and there's a lot of racism involved. Let me put it that way, and I'm going to be real honest about that.
Wow.
And you got to play a certain part.
Yeah.
And I just knew that, you know what? I'd grown up with the folk music at the same time, and I loved that energy.
That scene was a whole lot different.
But what happened, and this changed my life, true story, we used to rehearse at Oakland Tech in Oakland, and then for show days, we'd have long rehearsal before the concert at the Paramount, Oakland Paramount. That's where we performed in Oakland. And I became friends with the guard there, and his son went to school with me, and he said one day, Carlos, you want to come to a show this weekend? You think you can come out? And I said, yeah, sure. And I was about 15, 16. And I said, okay, well, come down. And so he came down, he walked me down the stairs right before the show, and he introduces me to the stage manager. He says, hey, this is my boy here. Can we have him watch the show? And
Hook him up.
Yeah, and I remember the guy, mustache, a handlebar mustache. He said, yeah, stand right there, don't move. And I was going, wow. I didn't even look at the marquee because, rock and roll, all that stuff, the beat, everything was prohibited in my house. It was either folk music or classical music. 3-4 hours a day practice, and if you came home from school, I had a tough upbringing, man. Old school whoopings, and Anyway, that's another story. And so I sat down there, and this band came out, and it was Tower of Power.
Oh boy, here we go.
And I've been in school playing bass, playing in the jazz band, but I heard these guys.
And here comes Rocco.
And the funk.
Yeah.
And the arrangements.
Yeah.
I was like, I was blown away. But then the main act was this guy who they said he's classically trained. He's playing jazz and all that stuff. And he comes out and he plays, first opens up with piano and then goes into this groove thing. And my head was just like tilt. If it was a pinball, the bells would have just been kept on ringing, And then I saw the bass player go to town. And then the guitar player was playing like these classical violin licks. And it was Chick Corea and Return to Forever.
Come on.
Stanley Clarke. And those two bands just changed my life.
I bet. Yeah, that opened your
Changed
whole world.
my life. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything. And I'm going, I was hearing, and he had, the Spanish Heart album right before that. And and I started getting into that. Got into Luc Ponty, became friends with Ponty, Stefan Grappelli, and just kept on going. And so between that, did tons of country gigs. So my whole thing just blew up. That last year of high school.
Let me just take an interlude, because if you love Carlos Reyes, and of course you love Carlos Reyes. Come on. Don't forget, his shows are coming up. He's got one the 27th, Fairfield, California, right at the Downtown Theater. Beautiful place to see a show. Where can we get tickets for that show?
Well,
are they on the Downtown?
You can actually go to Downtown Theater.
Yeah. DowntownTheater.com. And I'll tell you what, not a bad seat in the house. There's plenty of elevated seats. You're looking right at the
little
stage.
Performing arts center.
Beautiful.
It's hard to believe
it sounds great, too.
And hard to believe that it's in Fairfield and not more people take advantage of it. It's gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. Parking is great. Everything about that place, terrific. Then then you've got Yoshi's on the 1st.
Yeah, that's the 1st. So early night, 8 to 9:30, 9:45. I've got Tony Lindsay from Santana, lead singer.
Come on.
Janice Maxie Reed, who has worked with Narda, worked with Sting, Stevie. Just we've been friends. All of us, Tony, we've all been friends since like junior high.
Wow.
And also a guitar player that was with Tower of Power, Jeff Tamalier.
Okay.
And the percussionist from George Benson, another friend from way back when we were kids. And my buddies Randy and Leo, who we've been playing together since basically out of high school. So it's an all-family reunion doing the Carlos show.
Wow. That's terrific.
Fantastic.
And then you've got, beyond that, Silos. Two shows at Silos.
Yeah, and that'll be a nice little intimate thing.
Yeah.
It'll be a 5-piece group. We'll do some solo stuff, some more of the acoustic-y stuff, but also the grooving. And Jeff and Janice will be there, and Tony.
Yeah.
So, I like to mix it up.
And that place seats maybe $150.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's like 125 130.
125. So this is the thing. If you're in the Bay Area, everybody, you got an opportunity just in the next couple of weeks to see Carlos in a variety of locations, in a variety of setups, and in a family style
in a
show.
very intimate setting.
Yeah.
From all the
And a
downtown
variety of
theater
genres, too.
Yeah.
The
Come out. Shit.
Yeah.
If you like the show,
And you know you do.
send us some pictures of your movies.
Don't do that. Support the show.
There are 3 ways you can support us.
Number 1, go to iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you listen to podcasts.
And leave a 5-star rating and review.
It helps with the show metrics and helps us get better placement. Number 2,
Visit our website.
www.breakitdownshow.com.
We've got an Amazon and an eBay link.
Same Amazon, same eBay, you know and love, but they give us a little kickback when you get to their site from ours. And number 3, leave comments about the shows that you like. We want to know what you think, how you feel.
Tell us how to make the show better. We greatly appreciate it.
Now back to the show.
We like boobies.
The downtown theater it's hard to believe when you walk in there and it looks like this gigantic theater that's been miniaturized.
That's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah,
It
and-
looks like an amazing, what's that place, the one in Tokyo, the Budokan.
the Budokan.
It looks like that in miniature, and
Yeah.
it sounds fantastic.
It's a
in
bonsai
there.
Budokan.
That's exactly.
That's a good one.
You got Mr. Miyagi trimming the edges of the theater. He's squishing it down. The place is wonderful. Come out, see some live music. Check out Carlos. You're going to love
This
it.
is the thing is you've got it. There's so much of this in the Bay Area. You're so lucky. There's so many great little venues like that with world-class talent. I mean, you talked about people that played with Sting and everybody. Incredible. These are the best people you're going to run into,
Well,
and they're
the
right
Bay
here.
Area has created so many great. I mean, the Santana. I mean, Steve Miller, the Doobie Brothers,
Yeah.
Tower. I mean,
Boz
we can go
Scaggs,
on.
Tower.
Tons
Yeah.
of people, and a lot of people left the meccas of like Chicago and Texas, and they came out
came
here
here.
at that one time to do that, only because there was an acceptance of trying to do something different,
Yeah.
And there's still a lot. I mean, people may not like to hear this, but a lot of Prince's energy. I know it's Minneapolis, and I know those guys, but the Sheila
Yeah,
E.,
come on.
Levi
Let's go.
Caesar,
Sheila,
Minnie
Levi.
Field,
Yeah, Eddie M. Miko Weaver.
Miko, all those guys were from here.
All those
because
guys here.
It was a vibe happening.
Yeah, Bonnie Boyer.
Yeah. Bonnie.
Rosie
God,
Gaines.
all those.
Everybody.
I just, it was, we're really lucky, and I hope that, they say that in trends, in music, every 25 years, 30 years, something, it kind of
get
recaps again.
Right.
And hopefully now, you look at people like Snarky Puppy and all these people, which is the new fusion funk, man, and all that stuff happening, and man, it's just, I'm thankful because I'm an old groovester, funkster, R&B fusion guy from way back, and it's coming back. And even though there's not a lot of places to play like there used to, there is the entity of that energy starting to come back. So people are starting to, maybe not as many places, like I say, but it's there and it's coming hard.
Yeah.
And I hope so, because that gives me more of a chance to get to that next level,
I think we are seeing a renaissance. I mean, you bring up Return to Forever, which after a while, you had to be a certain generation to get Return to Forever. And then for a while, they fell out of favor with the new listener. And now everybody's kind of rediscovering Return to Forever, the Brecker Brothers. And then you got, like you said, the young chop hounds that are coming out, Snarky Puppy and Hiatus Coyote. And,
Right.
Bands like this that are just bringing not only an amazing musicianship, but an inventiveness to their arrangements.
And also, a lot of those people are starting to notice the value of the old school, those musicians, and redoing a lot of those old tunes in their own way and giving them their own integrity all over again.
Yeah.
And I've been doing some focus tunes with Zac Brown Band, and they're doing. This is a country band that has a Latin percussionist in it.
Oh, man.
Danny de los Reyes, who's a distant cousin, and I've done some stuff with them, and they're doing redos of Queen, just like Queen.
Yeah.
And redos of so many different songs and some fusion breakdowns and whatnot. So people like that are really into acknowledging that and bringing it out hard again.
Yeah, I want you to meet my son Nico. Nico's
that's
Carlos
my son's
Reyes.
name, Nico. There's a tune on there called Nico's Roomba, as a matter of fact.
Really?
His
Wow.
is Niko.
This is Brandon. He's my other son.
Hi, other son.
We make fun of him because we found him in the road.
Really? Wow. Instead of roadkill, it's road live.
It's a tough room. It's a tough room. So, yeah, man. I you know what? I'm so stimulated by this conversation, man. I'm just. First of all, I'm honored to meet you today, and I'm so happy you came to my house.
Thanks, yeah.
But you know,
No biggie.
to get here, and then we get to talk about this stuff, man. You came up in Oakland. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm about 130,000 years old.
130,000 years old. I swear to God, he doesn't look a day over 111,000. No, but the generation of music that you are talking about. I mean, if you, as a young man, saw at the Paramount Tower open up for Return to Forever, you know, that does date you. I'll let our listeners do the math, the mental math. Man, just the emergence of funk that you saw and were a part of in the years that followed that event.
Well, at 14, maybe a little younger, I started playing clubs with my dad.
Okay.
You know, and when I was a junior in high school,
What clubs, when you were 14, were still here?
different places in San Francisco, some of the Spanish places, they have feature nights and like that. And, and a lot of the movie theaters in the Spanish section, you know, the Mission, would have nights where they'd have
they featured music.
Yeah, and I would do that. And certain nightclubs that would just have music. And, I mean, the stuff I would never let my kid do when I was there, but I did, and it was great. But the one thing that happened when I was between my junior and senior year, I hung out during the summer with a group from Paraguay that was living in Texas. And they were a traditional folk band, but Latin. They played all kinds of international stuff. They played everything from, you know, pop Japanese tunes to I don't know if you remember a group called Society of Seven, SOS.
Wow.
Pilita Corrales, from the Philippines, and the Hawaiian, you know, Brothers and they would do all kinds of stuff. And I got to play with them and hang out with them that summer, and that got me into the nightclub thing.
How did you even go back to school for your senior year at that point?
My senior year was tough, man.
Where'd you go to school?
Skyline High School.
Skyline High.
Wow. And,
you and Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Me and Tom Hanks, yeah. And so we used to take harmony class, which was A period, which started at 7:05.
Wow.
But to get there on time, I had to take the bus at 5:45, 10 to 6.
Wow.
And it was right there in front of Oakland Tech. I lived on 42nd and Broadway.
You had to catch the bus in front of Oakland Tech to go to Skyline.
Yeah. And that's
somebody did some string pulling.
Oh, I'll tell you about
back
that string
then.
pulling. So you get there, and sometimes there was me and a couple other guys that were into music. Another friend of mine, I still play music. He's a professor of music at Laney. His name is Glenn Pearson, jazz pianist.
Nico goes to Laney.
Yeah.
Shout out to Laney.
Is it Laney or Merritt? Oh, one of those two. But so we still play together with a sax player named John Handy, who's an old icon of Miles Day. Anyway, we'd sit in the hallway waiting for the teacher to show up, and we'd be sleeping. And he goes, "You guys play last night?" I said, "Yeah." Okay. Go to the practice rooms. And so we go to practice rooms.
Hey, man, you get a pass.
Yeah.
You get a pass if you played last night. It was Tuesday.
Yeah.
And you were playing at Florence's until 2 a.m.
How about the Fifth Amendment?
The Fifth Amendment.
In Alameda.
Wow.
And places. And we got to go to, I did places called Eli's Mile High Club. And that was like an old black man's stinky bar blues hangout.
Where was
And
that?
That was in Oakland, Emeryville,
Yeah.
right there. And I tell you, that was some education there.
I bet.
And
Some life education.
But a guy that really, really turned me on to a lot of stuff is when I came back from Texas. I was out there for a year. I'd started playing my senior year with a band called Merlin. They got real popular in the Bay Area at that time. And it was led by a student of my father's. And they were all 15 years older, 20 years older. I got to see a lot.
Wow.
And so
Who was the guy?
his name is Jeff Rowlands.
Is he still around?
Yeah, he's around. He doesn't do music anymore.
Yeah.
But so I came back and I saw a guy next door walking in with this big guitar case.
Mm-hmm.
And it said Gibson on it.
Oh.
And so next day I saw him and he got out of his car and said, "Hi, my name's Carlos and my father told me you play guitar." He said, "Yeah." And I play electric guitar. He came over and this guy was a record nut. He had tons of records.
Yeah.
And I was just getting into that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And he pulled out everything. I mean, he was for about a year and a half, all I did was listen to records with him. And that was one of my greatest educations.
He kept your ears entertained.
Everything from when I told him I saw this band called Return to
Right.
Forever, he pulled out like 7 albums.
Right.
Everything from the Khan days, the Demiola days,
Yeah.
the Miroslav Vitus, and all these different people. And then the Tower and the different, incarnations of Tower and the Doobies and all these people. And just, it was great. And he was the first time that I saw what it's called a fake book.
Uh-huh.
And at that time, man, I could read anything on paper. And so we played together. And
And you just opened up the fake book
and
and
he
went,
said, "Here, try this." And he's the one, in high school, I'd been playing bass in the jazz band, but it wasn't the same.
Right.
Real standard stock stuff.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot of education there.
wow.
The other education was the first time I got booked to play in steakhouses with this band called Merlin. The guy who booked us or got us the lead on it was Chuck Helms, which was wait a minute. What's his name? Helms. Chet Helms. He was the one who brought out Janis Joplin, the man.
Oh.
He was the hippie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and
Jeff just told us about this guy.
Oh, really?
He said brought
He
him
was-
out. And he was a hippie, and that's Janis Joplin loved
Family
him.
Dog and
Yeah.
all this stuff. So anyway, he kind of turned us on to a couple of gigs. And so my first steakhouse gig by myself with this band,
Yeah.
I was that senior in high school. And they said, okay, in those days, they said, okay, the kid can play, but in the bar, but when he's not playing, he's got to go in the
He has to hang around
dining
out back.
room, or the office.
Right.
And after about 3-4 months, I started hanging out in the bars. And since I was drinking, I could see all the idiocy that was happening with people, and got to hang out with the waitresses and all that.
These are the
And
things
so
that
I
people
learned.
don't understand that's so lovable about the life of a musician. And it seems like, oh, man, all that time and all that stuff that you spend in those smoky old joints.
Mm-hmm.
But you're learning about a facet of life as a senior in high school that nobody gets to see at that age.
And I got to meet a lot of they were all older people.
Yeah.
Some of them kind of messed up. You kind of go, how do these people drink 5 nights a week and go to work?
And you learn
suits
from
and
that,
ties?
too, for sure.
And there was some very interesting people. I got some mentors that were
Dropping some nuggets of wisdom on you.
I got to meet the Cowardly Lion from The Wizard of Oz.
No
who come
kidding.
in to see us.
Was that, yeah?
Yeah, and
was
also
that?
Rafe. What was his name? Folger.
Bert
Bert
Lahr was the Cowardly Lion.
Yeah, and
Bolger was the Tin Man.
yeah, he came in too. Got to meet him, and he'd hang out. And this is in Lafayette, California.
No kidding.
At the Roundup.
No, did that a couple of years later.
Nice.
Yeah. The Roundup. How could we forget that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there was a lot of. I was very lucky that a lot of the people that took me under their wing, Chet all these people. And he took me to different clubs in San Francisco. So you figure a senior in high school playing on North Beach.
Yeah.
You know, got to meet
Yeah.
Carol Doda.
Yeah.
And there used to be so many clubs on that strip and everything.
Yeah.
The Grant and Green and all these places. And that's how I met Roy Rogers.
Wow.
He would come see
Way
me.
back
I'd
at the
go
Grant and Green. We were there yesterday.
Yeah, we were.
I was
Yeah.
like almost 16 when I first met him, you know, and we've been friends ever since.
Okay.
And then about 15, 16 years ago, you know, we did a gig together with Norton Buffalo. And Norton called me up and he says, "Hey, man, why don't you come down? I'm going to be in town with Roy." Three of us played, and boom, we, you know, been friends ever since. And Roy and I have been friends, and Norton and I used to do shows. And so it's been a great circle in the Bay Area, and I've learned a lot. And
As you were coming up, one of the questions I like to ask, you know, professional musicians is, did you ever have a regular job? Like, did you ever huck a newspaper for money or anything?
I did stuff for fun. I worked in a coin shop.
Uh-huh.
You know, it was my friend's coin shop when he went on vacation to help out for fun.
But you never had like a real job where you're
Oh,
like,
no,
I've
I've
gotta go to
mastered
work.
being independently broke just doing music.
He's a master.
Yeah, and then the next question is when did you know, like, no shit, I really can make a living doing this?
Well,
Or said differently, when
Yeah.
did you know, holy shit, I have no choice?
I have no choice but to do this.
well, I think I knew early on. I mean, I remember my first show, I was 5 years old with my dad
wow.
in front of people where I know we got paid.
Yeah.
And my first, when I moved out of the house right at high school, I mean, basically.
And just went right at it.
And I was doing it, man.
Yeah.
My first rent was $125 a month, and I was going, "Oh my God, how am I
gonna make
do
that?"
Yeah, and I have to eat.
My first, my first solo paid private gig was $60, and I played by myself solo harp for 5 hours
Oh,
in
my
a
goodness.
store window opening of a sewing shop, fabric store sewing shop in Albany.
How decadent.
Yeah.
I want to say real quick, listeners, carlosreyesmusic.com. Go check it out. You see the dates there. Upcoming dates real fast. August 27th at the Fairfield Downtown Theater. Go to downtowntheater.com to get tickets for that. You got the
September 1st.
September
Yoshi's.
1st at Yoshi's.
One show.
Also great. And then you got September 2nd.
3rd.
Or excuse me, September 3rd at Silos in Napa. 2 shows there. 7 and 9:30. So, man, everybody in the Bay Area, you need to check out Carlos Reyes.
And I'm also going to be, since we're plugging it in with Steve Miller at the Fillmore. Hasn't officially been announced, but there's going to be 2 nights at the Fillmore. It's called Steve Miller and Friends, and it's going to sell out like crazy.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be right after the AT&T Park, and I'm been asked to guest with him on that too.
Okay. I want to say that everybody should go see all of these shows. I'm not saying this lightly, but it would make my year if I could see that show at the Fillmore. So I'm going to be there. Whatever I need to do, I'm going to stay in touch with you so that I can be at that show. Because
That's fun because that's going to be Steve and Friends. So
That sounds like
a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
it's going to be a
That's the
terrific,
kind of show you
terrific
gotta
show.
go.
And I love the Fillmore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun because I'm hoping if everything works out, there's a lot of politics, of course, and the agencies and everything, but that we open up for the show. So that'd be
Okay.
great.
So let's get back to this because I don't think everybody realizes this is the kind of thing that, when you see a guy who's making his living playing music, you don't realize that these kinds of gigs where you're sitting in a sewing shop window for 5 hours and it's you and that harp, that's the kind of gig that makes the staying power that you have.
I've done a lot of those things for years.
Mm-hmm.
I did Sunday brunches at
Right.
the Sheraton.
Yeah.
And no matter do or die, when I played Saturday night, 8 o'clock I had to be there because I had to load in at 8, start playing at 9 till 3 o'clock. And it was outside in the atrium. And I remember wearing sunglasses.
Yeah.
and sitting back in a chair and knowing that I was asleep playing, and people would say, "Man, you kept on playing, no matter what."
It was ethereal. We walked in, and you had a command of the mood that was just, and you brought us to a different place. Yeah, I was sleeping.
Yeah, I did that. I mean, I've built sound systems for my own stuff, and I've done sound mixing because I love it, and set up we used to play 4 or 5 nights a week, set up a sound system every night, play, tear it down. Not that, other bands would do it too, but kids nowadays don't realize that the best part, the fun part of the whole thing was just that 1, 2, or 3 hours you played.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that the rest of it was work.
Yeah.
And you didn't get home till 3:30 or 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
And the one thing we've learned along the way, talking to comedians, actors, musicians, all these different people, when someone calls and says, "We have a gig," you say yes. You don't say no, because then they don't call back. And the next guy that plays a harp, it has your gig in the window,
Yeah, it's being a harpist and a violinist being the main things.
Yeah.
It's been hard because it hasn't always been this kind of, and I thank God, but it hasn't been this kind of notoriety or fun,
right,
or the hang out with the Steves or the Zac Browns.
Right.
And a lot of times is a violin player, you're a big guy, you're Spanish looking, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, you play harp? Oh, that's pretty.
That's useful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I play cello.
Oh, a true story. I went to one of the big hotels in San Francisco, and it had an advertisement in the paper for harpists.
Nice.
So, okay, I go and I show up and I call, and it says, I'm calling about the ad for a harpist wanted. Sure. When can you come in? Oh, when can she come in?
Yes.
Right.
Also, when can she come in?
Yeah.
And give me the date. I show up and I go to the concierge and says, I'm here to see the food and beverage. As the person always seems to be the one in charge of entertainment.
Right.
Because they know everything.
They hire the harpist, the food and beverage guy.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm supposed to see Mr. Richardson or whoever it was.
Right.
I'm the harpist.
The guy who just signed the purchase order for bacon.
Yeah.
Bacon
He's gotta be the guy
and
who
Chevis Regal.
Yeah. And the pastry salesman just left, and he's like, "You want a pastry?"
Yeah. And so he says, "Okay, I'll call." He says, "Oh yeah, you have to go upstairs and outside the elevator to the left, and they will see you and the harpist up there."
You and the harpist.
Going up, and I go up there, and there's a little receptionist there. She says, yes, I'm here to see something about the harp gig and blah, blah, blah. And oh, yeah, sure. Just wait, and let me call Mr. And this is pre-cell phones, pre-any of that crap.
Yeah.
So, it's just like buzz, buzz, buzz. Says, yeah. The harpist and her assistant is here. And,
I love it.
because usually, when it's a girl harpist, they got somebody's helping them move
carry that thing.
Yeah.
A light one's 90 pounds.
Right.
And so he says, buzz back. She says, yes, send them in. Okay, great. And I remember it was like in a movie. Door opens. He's about 30 feet across and at a table facing outside. And he says, I said, hello, I'm the harpist here. Yeah, go ahead, set her harp up over there, and you can play.
So funny.
And so I set up, and he goes, go ahead. He hasn't even turned around to look.
Right.
And start playing. He turns around, and I remember the look on his face, and he's looking at me like,
What the?
exactly, like a Martian. And he goes, wait. He says, you're a...
Yeah.
I says, a guy. I said, yeah.
Yeah.
I said harpist, and one people play jazz, and he says, well, but we were kind of looking for, the blonde wig or the blonde hair, and I said, but
flowy,
let me
gauzy
play.
dress.
Yeah. Let me play, and I played him some jazz tunes. And he says, okay, I'll let you know. And then I got the gig for there was 3 Sundays in a row like that, and it was cool. And I got to keep the dress and the wig. But it's come a long way.
And if you want to see pictures of Carlos in that dress and wig, go to
He did work in the
carlosreyesmusic.com.
Tenderloin a lot. Yeah.
No, I played country for a lot of years too, and I tell you, I ran into some situations where some good old boys were going, what kind of Mexican are you playing fiddle?
Right, yeah.
And I played fiddle for them, and
Sure.
we became friends. But there's
Music conquers all.
yeah, it's different. But I've had a gun pull on me in parking lots, thinking I was somebody else, and after a gig in a tuxedo and holding a harp in one hand, you don't feel real strong.
It's not a combat harp?
No, it's not a combat harp. Actually, this new one, the way it is, could be, but not in the old days.
Pick up on every string.
Is there any difference between I know, like, you can bring the same instrument between a violin and a fiddle. Are you different tuning, or what's the difference?
Violin is an instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Fiddle is a nickname / style.
Okay.
Even classical violinists call their instruments fiddles. But the fiddle is a name. It's hard to say where it came from, but there's Swedish fiddle music. There's Irish fiddle music, and the word fiddle has been around as a nickname for a long time, but it's associated a lot with country.
Sure, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so no real difference. It's just kind of a feel and a style.
I think.
Can you play fiddle music with like
a regular violin? Yeah.
Yeah.
Some fiddle players of the old tradition, old schools, and old styles will have the bridge maybe a little flatter.
Okay.
And they like a different kind of tone, but that's a personal preference.
Yeah, that's just player
So your
preference.
Stradivarius
right?
can be a fiddle if picked on the right way. Okay.
Sure.
A Stradivarius just gave you a sideways look.
Yeah.
Your Stradivarius can be a fiddle, and it went.
Your standard Stradivarius, you can put that in the band. You got to have a fiddle player in the band.
That's right.
Even if it's $1 million fiddle.
It's not the gun that kills, it's
Right.
the person.
It is.
And it's not the never mind.
Which one do you prefer playing of all the stringed instruments that you like?
Oh, I don't know. That's a hard one. What I do say is
That's like Hef,
Yeah.
January through December. Which one do you like best? You know
Yeah.
what? I'll tell you which one I like
Well,
best.
to
Ask me
me-
in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
if somebody said
You only get one.
You only get one, and you're going to go into combat. I
Right.
take the violin. That's my sniper weapon.
Okay.
The harp, I can be a one-man orchestra kind of thing, and all that. It's a different animal. So the way I approach it, how I got to combine it with other people, But the violin, I can play with. I mean, I recorded on early MC Hammer records, and I've dubbed for rock and roll lead guitar players with the violin and distortion. So I can mold it. I can take it wherever I got to do. I can be the gypsy. I can be the whatever. So
Right on.
that's my weapon of choice.
So everybody, listen, one last time, I'm going to say, go to carlosreyesmusic.com. You get everything there. All the dates coming up. You keep the site updated. You got the shows coming up on the 27th at the Fairfield Downtown Theater. You got the September 1st.
September 1st at Yoshi's,
At
in
Yoshi's.
Oakland.
That's right. September 3rd, 2 shows at Silos in Napa. And a show has yet to be announced coming up at the Fillmore with Steve Miller and friends. Keep your eyes open. So our listeners who are really, really diligent and staying up on your website and stuff are going to be rewarded with that show and many others that you have in the Bay Area in several different incarnations. We're going to keep up on you. One thing that I wanted to ask you before we go is, what did you do for 3 things? Okay.
All right.
Via Alegre.
Via Alegre, oh my goodness. I did a couple of spots originally for Sesame Street. I was like 13, and because they were trying to get into the Spanish thing, and then Via Alegre became the.
But they had
offshoot.
Luis. They weren't already in the Spanish thing.
We'll just move right along.
Yeah.
And so Via Alegre came along as the offshoot for
Sure.
combining that concept in Spanish like that. And there was a famous group from Puerto Rico that was they're all educated musicians, and they were here in Oakland doing the music for it.
Wow.
And so they hired me, and I played violin, I played mandolin, and I played harp for them. And I was in junior high and they'd come pick me up at junior high.
Wow.
And take me in there. And I got to see some pretty interesting stuff at a young age.
Boy.
We recorded in San Francisco at a place called Golden State Recorders. And if anybody knows anything about this, was before Wally Hyder's, before the Auto Map. I'm sure Jeff remembers all this place. Golden State Recorders was a heavy-duty place. And a guy named Leo Diarkolka was this crazy German dude. He was one of the first guys to do espionage recording and help come up with the concept of the little miniature recorders and all that. And he was nuts. And in the middle of the session, he'd come in ranting and raving about some craziness. And I met some of the greatest, Bay Area studio musicians there. And I saw Miles Davis.
Wow.
There. I saw Billy Preston.
Wow.
I saw Billy Preston there. Joni Mitchell.
Yeah.
And it was just like I knew that they were big time, but I didn't know exactly who they were. Watching these people, and that was the
That's
first
like
time.
Nico when he walked in here and met you. He was like, "Oh, this is
nice.
nice. Nice
Nice
meeting you."
hat.
Thanks. Yeah.
And those are the first times I saw drugs.
Oh wow!
People
At
smoking
Golden
pot.
State Recorders.
Yeah, first time I saw a can of Coke that was a half can of coffee.
Jesus.
Full.
Yeah.
Like that. Just out on a B3.
Wow.
I'm not going to tell you who was playing the B3, but it was like, wow. And like I said, I had a lot of mentors that took care of me and taught me and told me what it was.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's good, man. Clearly, you had the guidance because you made it this far.
Yeah.
When you see things like that at that young of an age, it can turn left if you don't have the right guy with his arm around you, going, "Okay, we're going to steer clear of this stuff. Just take it easy."
It was, and I was lucky. Like I said, my friends in Merlin, they're all 15, some around 20 years old, and they said, "Listen, this is what happens. This is what goes on. Boom, 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 and this is how you need to look at it, respect it, and blah, blah, blah."
What a crazy repository of stories you are, man. This is terrific.
Oh, we haven't even touched.
Here's my second question.
I
You
met
got
Jeff.
nodding over here.
I met Jeff we're going, 30 some odd years ago, like that. And I had left that group and finally stopped a group for a bunch of reasons that we've kind of covered already, but I needed to go kind of regroup. So for 3 years, I just played in a restaurant by myself, playing solo harp at a fine dining place. And Jeff came in, and he goes, "Hi, what are you doing here?"
Wow, what are you doing here? You're not wearing the dress.
No, we got into music.
You
And
need Warriors tickets?
yeah, and it was funny because I said, "No, I'm doing it. Oh, great." And then I said, "What are you doing out here?" And I said, "Well, I'm coming to see this guy sing. I'm going to check out." It turns out to be somebody I knew. And he says, "Well, I'm going to call a cab." I said, "No, just wait." So on my break, I took him over there to the place, came back and finished my night. We've been friends ever since.
Wow.
And he's been not just a friend, but a good friend. He's been, he's helped me with concerts, with gigs, with contracts, everything, and it's always been as a friend, and we do stuff together. And so I don't know, I just publicly want to say he's been great and one of the best guys to have in my life and on my team. Talk about a guy who's got stories.
No kidding.
Get out of here.
For sure, check out Jeff's got a two-parter.
He came, sat down at the table, and we couldn't fit it all in one podcast.
I think I said 7 words.
And he's definitely everybody knows Jeff is a sweet dude, man.
Yeah.
And so much a part of the
fabric,
musical community in the Bay Area. Here's my question number 2. Did you see the Jocko documentary?
Oh yeah,
Nice, huh?
When Jocko came out, man, he changed my concept of being a lyrical instrument out of the norm.
Right.
Because for me, I'd known the Stefan Grappelli as a lead instrument in jazz, of course, and the Luc Ponty, which was kind of like he was all his own. But what Jocko did for me, mean, being a bass player was incredible, but the concept of you could be a lead instrument with a instrument that is out of the norm.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
Yeah.
I mean, sad to say that, his demons took over
Yeah.
and all that. But the thing was that his spirit was so strong. And to me, I say, I thank God that he gave me this gift called music. The best way to be a good steward for me is to keep sharing it and keep giving it out.
Sure. Right.
Help heal with it.
Yeah.
What comes back is what comes back. And Jocko, his thing was about playing music. It was about just giving it, just expressing it, because he needed to make space for other things
Yeah.
in him. And people didn't get that, sadly, until the very end.
Huh.
Because he was just so multidimensional.
Yeah.
He unleashed our ears. Your ears get tuned to certain things, and he allowed the chains to be removed so that you could, like you said, be a lead instrument from a different part of the stage.
Yeah, it's,
orally speaking.
I think every genre and every instrument has had some kind of leader like that. I mean, if you look at Satchmo,
Yeah.
and what he did originally, people said, but he's playing the cornet, I think. But look at where music was before that of jazz,
Right.
and what came out of there. And if you look at any of his pictorial, is that right? Pictorial biography, he was one of the first guys to have integrated band.
Yeah.
He was the first guy, if it was the one good thing about the days of the bootleggers and the speakeasies and everything, in that era, it gave a lot of musicians, black, white, I don't care what race you were, they were mixed.
Right.
And the Glenn Miller concept, he got that from seeing a lot of the minstrel bands,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And so there's always been somebody coming out with that,
Once again, music leads the way.
Well, there is a great book that I suggest to anybody who is into music, and even if people just love music, and it's by a friend of mine who's a great writer of music books, and he's a trained psychologist and doctor and all this, and it's called remember the old book called This Is Your Brain on Drugs? Well, his is called This Is Your Brain on Music.
Wow.
And it explains what happens in your mind, in your brain,
When it's
having
stimulated by music. Yeah.
and the difference between somebody like, say, myself, who's been doing it since 3.5, the
Right.
different part of the brains and all that stuff. And I've been fortunate enough now to be giving some talks with him. Me from the side of the musician on stage, what happens, and then we kind of throw it back and forth, and he explains it from the brain side. And he's got another book which is really, really exquisite. It's called The World in 6 Songs. I might have it a little backwards, but it explains how the cultures through time in our world, how important music is, and how our cultures develop with music. And that's why right now what the problems we're having, what's going on, boom, 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 and all this stuff. And it explains about the new edition is about explaining about rap. A lot of why is rap so important, the negative sides and the positive sides.
What is this author's name?
It's it's Dan Levitin, Dr. Dan Levitin. He's got 5 books on the bestseller, and it's a really easy read that you can understand, especially the one called This Is Your Brain on Music. Great. He's a musician himself. He was a producer turned doctor, all that, and he lives right here in Orinda.
Do you know Dr. Robert Greenberg?
I know of. I've never met.
Man, that guy. We love
Yeah,
him.
we ought to put you guys together.
Yeah, we've done 3 shows with him, and we never get enough.
Well, I hope I get to come back too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, absolutely. That's already settled. Yeah.
It's music is people don't understand that music and musicians were here from the dawning of man.
Not just the dawn of man, but let's get this straight. We have every piece of evidence to believe that music was here from the dawn of ideas. Because really, when man could stop and begin to think and formulate coherent thought, the first thing that comes out is music. And then it stimulates everything else spatially from there. I mean, music is spatial awareness acted out. You know, when you are on stage and it's time for your solo, or when you are on stage and the band's going, and you especially, because you come in as a player who's a featured player.
Yeah.
For instance, going on stage with Steve Miller. You have to find your place to fit in. And that's really when the brain began comprehending spatial awareness. It had to say, okay, I can arrange things.
Yeah.
I can arrange sounds. Here's what a chord is. So really, if we look at the way that you bring up, the way that the brain develops, the way that ideas develop, the first expression of idea may have been scratching on a wall of a cave. Shortly after that, we figured out how to make a sound with something.
Let me add something to that. And what you're saying is exactly right. But that's a pocket that is moved forward in time a little bit. And I'll tell you why. The very first sense of music was really not because of music. It was sense of expression and also first senses of medicine. Because it was, they found drawings of how the first actual medical, not medical, I shouldn't even say medical, but things were used as far as extracting spirits. Where they use, sticks, logs, whatever, but it was also frequencies. So it all started with frequencies.
Sure.
Wow.
And that was the first things. Dance and music were the first things. They were also held as a hierarchy of persona in any village.
Sure.
Next to the witch doctor.
Every village had its rock star.
Yeah, every village had a medicine man.
Yeah.
A shaman, whatever, but they were all musicians. They also sat to the right of the king and queen. And musicians until, I don't remember the exact year, but music was considered part of the sciences.
Sure. I can
And
grasp
then the
where
church
Yeah.
got so scared because of course, musicians never made a lot of money.
Right.
These commoners, these plain folk that would go from town to town being the storytellers, they were always the storytellers.
Yeah.
They said, oh my God, these people are actually smart. These people can, we can't do that. The common folk can't be smarter. They're going to take over.
Yeah.
So
they roll into town and take control of everybody's emotions.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so it became part of the arts. So the respect and collegiate classifications, everything didn't hold the same when you're in the arts.
They had to marginalize it.
Yeah. Just like, from my understandings and readings, it's just the church had a lot to do. It's just like the Jesuits coming to South America in the 1500s, brought music, educated the indigenous population, and then the country said, nope, you can't educate Indians. They're going to be too smart. Get out of here.
Get out of here.
But the music stayed, and that's what became.
Yeah,
that's what educated.
Because being alive is musical. Like the first dudes out there, once you start walking, there's a rhythm.
Yeah.
When you bang rocks together and wash clothes or make food, there's a sound. There's
now
rhythms.
Going back to what you were saying is that although it may be very primitive to think that dancing around and going ooga ooga ooga, banging stuff is going to cure you, but the power of our own beliefs.
Yeah.
Is what helps cure us. I mean, holistic medicine, is, if you look at that part, what it really does to your body is it sets your body back into a place where you can naturally cure yourself. And if I ring a bell, like Tibetan bell healing, if I these frequencies that alter you and everything, it sets you at peace again so you can start curing yourself. Yeah. Who's to say that music really isn't a healing power?
It brings you back to your happy place on a cellular level.
Exactly. And when you're happy, it's a lot easier to cure a lot easier to heal.
Yeah.
So that's why, for me, I say that's my job here is just to help heal through music.
I love it.
Hey, you want to be happy? CarlosReyesMusic.com. On the 27th, go to Fairfield Downtown Theater. Go see Carlos Reyes. On the 1st, go to
September 1st.
Yoshi's. See Carlos Reyes there. On the 3rd, go see Carlos Reyes. 2 shows at Silos in Napa. And, man, thank you. You got a wide open seat here anytime you're around.
Call me back.
Pop on
We'll
in,
talk
man.
some.
We will do this all day long.
Thank you guys.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
our
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Our
Thank you
pleasure.
so
And
much.
thanks for Jeff for all the support and hooking me up and keeping the music going.
And
Gives
by
me
the
a
way,
place.
everybody also check out JeffTragerPresents.com for whatever shows are coming through, because he's putting shows on in the first thing he does is pick the greatest musicians and put them in the greatest venues locally. So if you go to JeffTragerPresents.com, Jeff Trager, just like it's spelled just like it sounds, JeffTragerPresents.com. Check out the shows. You'll see Carlos on there. And thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.